Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the slots tool in SolidWorks. So this is a slot tool. If you click the drop down, you have the straight slot, you have the center point straight slot, you have the 3-point arc slot, and then the center point arc slot. So we're going to go ahead and sketch on the top plane. So you can see here we have a straight slot here. So straight slot has a center point here. So usually I will try to make the center point coincident. And you can see when I drag it, um, the degrees of freedom it has is you could change the length and the width. So the arc here is going to be defined by the width. You can see here there's like different types you could play with for the slot types. So that will change the way you dimension it. So you can see here it's defining either by the center or by you have like a center mark, or you could dimension it by the edges. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to see, but if I draw it again, so let's say I choose this one. So that's one. And if I come back here, if I click this, okay, so if I dimension this, so you can't actually really see it from here, but those are the options that they give you. But anyway, you could see that this horizontal, you could actually change that, right? And you could tilt your slot if you wanted to. But here you could make it coincident and you could dimension like the length of this and maybe also the width of your slot. And then you could see if you try dragging it, you can see there's a rotation component. So if you make this horizontal, then now this is all black. So this is fully defined, right? So here, that's how you can make a slot fully defined. You have pretty much 3 degrees of freedom. You have the length, the width, and the angle, and also the position. That's another 2. But since we make that coincident, that makes 2 degrees of freedom go away. But so slots are usually good if you're trying to design something that something needs to maybe there's like a pin or something that you need to have it slide into, or maybe you have a cutout and you want the cutout to have like rounded corners instead of edges like rectangles. That's where slots are good for. So it's good if you're trying to make like it might be good with things with the extrude cut feature that we'll talk about later on. So that's the straight slot, and then you have the center point straight slot. So for this one here, it looks like this. So if you compare it, notice that here we define it from the center, whereas the other one is defined from the 2 points. Okay, so this is like the equivalent with like midpoint line versus the non-midpoint line. So this will just start from the center and then stretch out. And then to define it, you could pretty much choose the same ways that we did previously. You could dimension the location, the width, the length, and then so on. So another way you could dimension this is if you dimension the radius. You can also do that. But to dimension the radius is almost the same as dimensioning the width of it. So it's really not that much difference, but it's the same idea. And then you have like the 3-point arc slots. So for that, you have 1 point and then the second point, and then you could choose the radius of this. And then once you choose the radius, you could stretch out to see what sort of thickness. So here you could like drag it to make like a half donut if you're thinking about donuts. But to fully define something like this, you could have the 2 centers coincident. So notice now you can drag. Here maybe I want to specify the radius or the thickness. And if I want this to look like a horseshoe, maybe I could create some relations here. I could do these 2 points. I could come here and have like a center line. For example, I could make this a horizontal relation, but now this can stretch. So maybe I want to define some length here, and I'm just choosing random values. It doesn't really matter. And then notice here I can still rotate. So maybe I could choose these 2 lines. I can make them line up by adding another center line here. So this is another thing that's useful with center lines. So now I made it horizontal. And if I exit the sketch, you see that this little arc here is fully defined. Okay. So that's how you fully define this arc. And then here we have a center point arc slot. So with the center point arc slot, you have one center point, and then you click once, then you could form your other point. Okay, so that's how you do your center point, and you could define it the same way. You could have some thickness and then some starting point. You could either locate the dimension or use the angle. Angle will be easier because you will need fewer dimensions. So that's how you could do the center point. So depending on which one you need, like a center point or a non-center point, it just depends on your application. Um, if you know where the origin needs to be, then you may want to choose a center point option. If you're designing it based off of the start and end points, then you may choose a straight slot or a 3-point arc slot. Okay, so that summarizes how to use a slot sketch tool. So if you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.